Ravanachari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jai Radha Madhava Sujabhiyari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivra Acharya Shostataya Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru Shri Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devyam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nasta Preshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Hare Krishna. Guru Karma was giving us praise for having good attendance in Bhagavatam class, but actually that was just when he was looking. Yeah, right. Now it's real attendance is here. But some devotees are always here, and so we appreciate that. Those are the core devotees, actually. The devotees that are going to really get the mercy are the devotees that always attend Bhagavatam class. That's so important. If I miss anything, the one thing I don't miss is Bhagavatam class. This thing I really hate to miss, Bhagavatam class and Mangalarti. Even if I miss Bhagavatam class, I hear a Bhagavatam class. Always hear one. Or hear it online. So important. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Creation of the Fourth Order, chapter number 22, Priti Maharaj's meeting with the Kumaras, text number 24. These are very nectarian, instructive, and beautiful Krishna conscious verses. Ahimsaya paramamsya charyaya Smritya mukunda charitarya siduna Yamera kamer niyamaischa chapyan nindhyaya Nirihaya dvandva titikshaya cha It's my first time reading verse 3 also. Ahimsaya paramahamsya charyaya smritya mukunda charitarya sindhuna Yamaira kamar niyamaischapya nindaya Nirihaya dvandvatatikshaya cha Ahimsaya paramahamsya charyaya Smritya mukunda charitarya sindhuna Yamaira kamar niyamaischapya nindaya Chapyanindaya Nirihaya dvandvatatikshaya cha Ahimsaya paramahamsya charyaya Smritya mukunda charitagrya sindhuna Yamaira kamar niyamaischapyindaya Nirihaya dvandvatatikshaya cha Ahimsaya paramahamsya charyaya Smritya mukunda charitagrya sindhuna Yamaira kamar niyamaischapyindaya Nirihaya dvandvatatikshaya cha Ahimsaya paramahamsya charyaya Smritya mukunda rachitagra sindhuna Yamaira kamar niyamaischapya nindaya Nirihaya dvandvatatikshaya cha
Ahimsaya paramahamsa chayaya
Ahimsaya paramahamsya charyaya
Smritya mukunda charitagrya sindhuna
Smritya mukunda charitagra sindhuna
Yamaira kamar niyamaischapya nindaya
Yamaira kamar niyamaischapya nindaya
Nirihaya dvandvatatikshaya cha
Nirihaya dvandvatatikshaya cha Ahimsaya paramahamsa charyaya
Smritya mukunda charitagrya sindhuna Yamaira kamar niyamaischapya nindaya
Word for word. Ahimsaya by non-violence. Paramahamsya charyaya by following in the footsteps of great acharyas. Smritya, by remembering. Mukunda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Acharita agra, simply preaching his activities. Sinduna, by the nectar. Yamai, by following regulative principles. Akamai, without material desires. Niyamai, by strictly following the rules and regulations. Cha, also. Api, certainly. Anindaya, without blasphemy. Niryaya, living simply. Plain living. Dvandva, duality. Pratikshaya, by tolerance. Cha, and. Translation. A candidate for spiritual advancement must be nonviolent, must follow in the footsteps of great acharyas, must always remember the nectar of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, must follow the regulative principles without material desire, and while following the regulative principles, should not blaspheme others. A devotee should lead a very simple life and not be disturbed by the duality of opposing elements. He should learn to tolerate them. Please repeat. A candidate for spiritual advancement must be nonviolent, must follow in the footsteps of great acharyas, must always remember the nectar of the pastimes of the personality of Godhead, must follow the regulative principles without material desire, and while following the regulative principles, should not blaspheme others. A devotee should lead a very simple life and not be disturbed by the duality of opposing elements. He should learn to tolerate them. Purport, Srila Prabhupada. The devotees are actually saintly persons or sadhus. The first qualification of a sadhu or devotee is ahimsa, or nonviolence. Persons interested in the path of devotional service or in going back home, back to Godhead, must first practice ahimsa, or nonviolence. A sadhu is described as tatikshava karunika. A devotee should be tolerant and should be very much compassionate toward others. For example, if he suffers personal injury, he should tolerate it. But if someone else suffers injury, the devotee should not tolerate it. The whole world is full of violence, and a devotee's first business is to stop this violence, including the unnecessary slaughter of animals. A devotee is the friend not only of human society, but of all living entities, for he sees all living entities as sons of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He does not claim himself to be the only Son of God and allow all others to be killed, thinking that they have no soul. This kind of philosophy is never advocated by a pure devotee of the Lord. Srida Sarvadehina, a true devotee is the friend of all living entities. Krishna claims in Bhagavad Gita to be the father of all species, of all living entities. Consequently, the devotee of Krishna is always the friend of all. This is called ahimsa. Such nonviolence can be practiced only when we follow in the footsteps of great acharyas. That's a big purport. Therefore, according to our Vaishnava philosophy, we have to follow the great acharyas of the four sampradayas or disciplic successions. Trying to advance in spiritual life outside the disciplic succession is simply ludicrous. It is said, therefore, acharyavan purusho vedha. One who follows the disciplic succession of acharyas knows things as they are. Chandogya Upanishad 6.14.2. Tad vijnanartam sa gurum eva bigachit. In order to understand the transcendental science, one must approach the bona fide spiritual master. Kunda Upanishad 1.2.12. The word smritya is very important in spiritual life. Smritya means always remembering Krishna, always. Life should be molded in such a way that one cannot remain alone without thinking of Krishna. We should live in Krishna, so that while eating, sleeping, walking, and working, we remain only in Krishna. Our Krishna Consciousness Society recommends that we arrange our living so that we can remember Krishna. In our ISKCON society, the devotees, while engaged in making spiritual sky incense, are also hearing about the glories of Krishna or his devotees. The Shastra recommends Smartavyaha Satatam Vishnu. Lord Vishnu should be remembered always, constantly. Vishmartavyo na jatuchit. Vishnu should never be forgotten. That is the spiritual way of life. Smritya. This remembrance of the Lord can be continued if we hear about him constantly. It is therefore recommended in this verse, Mukundarachi Targya Sindhuna. Sindhu means nectar. To hear about Krishna from the Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita or similar authentic literature is to live in Krishna consciousness. Such concentration in Krishna consciousness can be achieved by persons who are strictly following the rules and regulative principles. We have recommended in our Krishna consciousness movement that a devotee chant 16 rounds on his beats daily and follow the regulative principles. This will help the devotee become fixed in spiritual advance, be fixed in his spiritual advancement in life. It is also stated in this verse that one can advance by controlling the senses. Yamai. By controlling the senses, one can become a Swami or Goswami. One who is therefore enjoying this super title, Swami or Goswami, must be very strict in controlling his senses. Indeed, he must be master of his senses. This is possible when one does not desire any material sense gratification. If, by chance, the senses want to work independently, he must control them. If we simply practice avoiding material sense gratification, controlling the senses is automatically achieved. Another important point mentioned in this connection is anindaya. We should not criticize others' methods of religion. There are different types of religious systems operating under different qualities of material nature. Those operating in the modes of ignorance and passion cannot be as perfect as that system in the mode of goodness. In the Bhagavad Gita, everything has been divided into 3 qualitative divisions. Therefore, religious systems are similarly categorized. When people are mostly under the modes of passion and ignorance, their system of religion will be of the same quality. A devotee, instead of criticizing such systems, will encourage the followers to stick to their principles so that gradually they can come to the platform of religion and goodness. Simply by criticizing them, a devotee's mind will be agitated. Thus, a devotee should tolerate and learn to stop agitation. Another feature of the devotee is nirihaya, simple living. Niriha means gentle, meek, or simple. A devotee should not live very gorgeously and imitate a materialistic person. Plain living and high thinking are recommended for a devotee. He should accept only so much as he needs to keep the material body fit for the execution of devotional service. He should not eat or sleep more than required. Simply eating for living and not living for eating. Simply and sleeping only 6 to 7 hours a day are principles to be followed by devotees. As long as the body is there, it is subjected to the influence of climatic changes, disease, and natural disturbances, the threefold miseries of material existence. We cannot avoid them. Sometimes we receive letters from neophyte devotees questioning why they have fallen sick, although pursuing Krishna consciousness. They should learn from this verse that they have to become tolerant. Dvandva tatikshaya. This is the world of duality. One should not think that because he has fallen sick, he has fallen from Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness can continue without impediment from any material opposition. Lord Shri Krishna therefore advises in the Bhagavad Gita, Tam Tatiksha Bharata. My dear Arjuna, please try to tolerate all these disturbances. Be fixed in your Krishna conscious activities. Yeah. Big purport. He's not reading. I forgot my phone. I thought I brought it. So I'm from far away. I have a hard time reading the book. Om Jnanatamandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurue Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radha Vrindavanishwari Vishubhara Shuddhi Devi Panamami Hari Priye Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvashesha Shanyavari Paschita Deshatarini Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namaste Jivananda Dasa Vamchani Varadaya Sanyasi Lavanurine Ajnana Dvanta Gamanam Pashtita Patitatma Jnana Gurudaya Chitarine Chakshashe Namaha. Okay, so that was a very beautiful verse. It's like an underhand pitch from Krishna, because Krishna is giving us everything we need for spiritual life and everything we need to talk about in Bhagavatam class. So we just read the verse. A candidate for spiritual advancement must be nonviolent. What is nonviolence? Prabhupada defines nonviolence in different places throughout his literatures. In one point, he describes nonviolence as not doing anything that brings distress to others. So you have to learn how to activate or how to perform our activities in such a way that we don't bring distress to others. So that means the way we speak, the way we use our body language, everything has to be done in such a way that it's not agitating to others. That's a science that takes practice and grace. It's described that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was like that. He was pleasing to everybody. But a Vaishnava is actually pleasing to everybody. And in other places, Srila Prabhupada describes nonviolence is the preaching of Krishna consciousness, which is the more prominent definition that we see. Nonviolence means to give spiritual knowledge to others. And inverse to that, having spiritual knowledge and not sharing it is considered the greatest violence. But worse than that is destroying someone's spiritual life and discouraging them in spiritual life. That's extreme violence to the soul. So we have to learn to be nonviolent in the sense that we are giving spiritual knowledge, encouraging each other in spiritual life, encouraging others in spiritual life, rather than destroying their spiritual life or discouraging them in any way, shape, or form. So that takes consciousness. As we like to say, you have to be conscious before you're Krishna conscious. So it's a very serious act of unconsciousness to discourage someone in spiritual life. It's coming based on, Hare Krishna, John, there's some chairs in here, or you can sit on this bench if you like to sit. Okay. Yeah. You have to have consciousness. That means we have to be aware of what we're doing. And there's different degrees of that. Different levels of consciousness means we're aware of ourselves in different ways. There's described in the Bhagavad Gita, in the purports, Prabhupada says, there's these different states of being. There's, what is it? Anamaya. Anamaya means I'm just interested in food. Anamaya. Then there's Dhyanamaya, breath. I'm interested in breath. Then there's Jnanamaya, knowledge, and there's Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya, these different levels of being. So we have to operate in a different platform. We have to operate in a platform of understanding what is the Krishna consciousness movement. The Krishna consciousness movement is Lord Chaitanya's movement to spread God consciousness and to spread the glories of the holy name. So sometimes people miss that point, that the goal is to help the person be a devotee. That's the goal. The goal is to help everybody become a devotee. That is our offering to Lord Chaitanya. That is our offering to Srila Prabhupada. So if we forget that and we act violently by discouraging someone, then that is very bad. That is a very serious challenge in our spiritual life. And so if we discourage preachers, blaspheming those devotees who have dedicated their lives to the propagation of the holy names of the Lord, if we discourage and blaspheme preachers, that is also a very serious offense to the holy name. We can't make spiritual advancement ourselves in that state of mind, because it's very violent. Just like we give up meat eating because it's violent. Prabhupada mentions that in this purport. So in the same way, we have to understand that even a greater act of violence than meat eating is to have spiritual knowledge and not give it. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta confirms that. Or to ruin someone's spiritual life, because everybody's going to die. All those cows are going to die either way. But stopping a living entity or inhibiting a living entity from entering the spiritual world and escaping samsara is a serious act of violence. So we should become nonviolent by cooperating with Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya. So a devotee who A candidate for spiritual advancement must be nonviolent. He must follow in the footsteps of the great acharyas. So, yeah, we have to follow in the footsteps of the great acharyas. That is a very serious and important point in developing any type of spiritual consciousness. As Krishna explains, Mam chayo vyabhyacharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityatan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. That if one can engage in constant devotional service, then he's immediately sagunan samatityatan. He's above the modes. Why? Because of this bhakti yogena sevate. He's engaging in this bhakti yoga, seva, and therefore he becomes situated in the level of Brahman. So all we have to do is follow very strictly the program that Srila Prabhupada gave us. We chant very nicely, we rise early, we engage in devotional service throughout our day, we engineer our lives in such a way that we're always remembering Krishna. And if we can always remember Krishna and always be aware or conscious of the fact that we're working for Krishna, we're working for the spiritual master who's working for Krishna. If we can be aware of that, then we are sagunan samatityatan. We're above the modes of material nature. So simply by following very strictly the rules and regulations of sadhana bhakti, one is above the modes of material nature. And that's confirmed by Rupa Goswami and the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam says, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yogena Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Ahaitukya Pratya. No, forgetting it. Jnana Yashu Vairagyam Gyanam Chayada Ahaitukam. Yeah, so if one can engage in Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yashu Vairagyam, immediate jnana and detachment is born. Jnana Yashu, from that devotional service, jnana, knowledge and detachment is born. Immediate, causeless. Aituki, it's causeless knowledge and detachment. So if one can engage in this sadhana bhakti seriously, they should have causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. And what is that knowledge? That knowledge means understanding my constitutional position as a servant of Krishna and engaging in devotional service, understanding I'm not this body, becoming joyful and enthusiastic. That's a sign of knowledge. So simply by following the instructions of the acharyas, we are able to exit the material modes of nature. And even on the level of sadhana bhakti, Rupa Goswami describes that there's 6 symptoms of devotional service, pure devotional service. And in the first stage, 2 of them appear. One of them is kleshagni. So a serious practitioner of devotional service experiences an end to material misery. And shubhada, he becomes blessed at every step. He becomes full of auspiciousness. So we see that in devotees who are serious about their sadhana, serious about their practice of Krishna consciousness, that they walk through the world in a very blessed way. And the things that affect other people or even other devotees don't affect them in the same way. They're free of misery because they're actually practicing sadhana bhakti properly. So we have our acharyas and we can follow them. Srila Prabhupada gave us very explicit instructions on how to perform this process. And if we follow it seriously, we'll get that result very quickly. Next says, one must always remember the nectar of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is so quintessential to spiritual life that we remember Krishna. And sometimes people want to remove Krishna. We were talking about, my Guru Maharaj, we're speaking about this non-preaching movement, where they want to preach Krishna consciousness without Krishna. And it's a big thing. It's growing in popularity that we don't want to say Krishna because we're scared that Krishna is going to scare people. How many times did Prabhupada say Krishna in this purport? It's just like, I was just feeling the nectar. It was so beautiful the way he says. The word smrita is very important in spiritual life. Smrita means always remembering Krishna. Life should be molded in such a way that we cannot remain alone without thinking of Krishna. We should live in Krishna so that while eating, sleeping, walking, working, we always remain only in Krishna. Our Krishna consciousness movement society recommends that we arrange our living so that we can remember Krishna. In our ISKCON society, the devotees, while engaged in making spiritual sky incense, are also hearing about the glories of Krishna or his devotees. Prabhupada is not holding any punches back by saying Krishna. Actually, we should feel that, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would, they would have his magazines going out, and then they would say, Maharaj, should we publish this? And he would say, how many times is the word Krishna mentioned? And they would say, how many times do you say publish it? And once there was actually one story about how Srila Prabhupada did an interview, I think it was in Australia. He did an interview, and they really butchered the interview, and said kind of these negative things about Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, how many times did they say Krishna? And he was very joyful that, all these people read the word Krishna. So this is someone who has faith in the holy name, that we should have faith that speaking of Krishna works. So we should remember these pastimes and these activities of Krishna. That's part of our process. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, we're remembering Krishna. And that is, quintessential to our spiritual life. So how do we remember Krishna? What's the best way to remember Krishna? To read. If you don't read, you can't remember Krishna. You chant, it's nice, but especially reading helps us to remember Krishna throughout our day. And hearing. We have this facility that in this age that we could constantly hear that. I'm always hearing a lecture or hearing something all the time about Krishna. And Krishna gives us a program of how to remember him. If we can't always remember Krishna, and Krishna says, I am the taste of water, I'm the light of the sun and the moon, I'm the syllable Om. There's so many things that Krishna is. Krishna is the strength of the strong. So we can always remember Krishna. Every time we take a sip of water, we'll think, oh, this is Krishna, and we'll remember Krishna's pastimes. We'll remember the personality of Godhead, Krishna. We see the sun. And when I was in Hawaii, talking with Hari Prabhu, he was saying how, everything reminds him of Krishna. Even just taking a breath, he realizes that's Krishna, thinking of, just every little thing is done just simply by Krishna's power, Krishna's mercy. So if we can do that, if we can develop that remembrance of Krishna with affection, then we'll find that our lives become very much more beautiful. But if we can't remember Krishna, at least don't forget Krishna. That's the rule, right? We can't always remember him, at least don't forget him. So continuing on, must follow the regulative principles without material desire. So there's these regulative principles. That goes beyond just our 4 regulative principles. There's regulative principles, rising early, doing things in a certain way. If we follow these regulative principles nicely, without material desire, then we will make advancement. And so at the beginning, the regulative principles are a little scary. Once again, Hari Prabhu in Hawaii, he was saying, that when he first came to the devotees, it was like, the no illicit sex thing was just a total, it was absolutely can't join this movement. And then he was saying that now, 50, 60 years later, practicing Krishna consciousness, that's his favorite regulative principle. And we can say that, actually we can feel like that after we follow the regulative principles for the time we realize that they're actually freeing us. And we don't desire to break them. We have no desire to, go out and get intoxicated, because why would I want to feel like that? I'm happy. I'm much happier, much more joyful and blissful than I would be under any form of intoxication. So we should follow these regulative principles without this hankering, this dissatisfaction. Sometimes you find that devotees become, resentful of Guru and Krishna. And they become very resentful of their service because they're harboring material desires. And they know intellectually that if I do this, it's going to make me suffer. But I'm upset with Krishna that I can't do this. And it's not manifesting as I'm upset with Krishna, but I'm upset with the devotees. I'm not enthused in my service. I'm not enthused. I'm just doing it. So, we've seen that attitude. And I guess I can't say for sure, but it seems to me, why do people become angry? Why do people become agitated, unenthused? Because of unfulfilled material desires. So rather than accepting that these things are detrimental to my consciousness, we become resentful of the devotees who are propagating this, following regulative principles, doing service. I want to use my time for my things. I don't want to, do something for Krishna. And so there's this resent that comes out. And it manifests in all kinds of different ways, Sometimes, anger, aggression, but also just a general lack of enthusiasm in everything we do in Krishna consciousness. Because I don't really like it, but I know that it's the right thing to do. I know it's the smart thing to do, but I don't like it. So we have to let go of that. We have to actually become enthusiastic about following the principles. It's a very revolutionary thing, the regulative principles, if you think about it. It's like a different species if you follow regulative principles. So one should not blaspheme others. It's obvious. We don't want to blaspheme others. Why? Because that's karmic. If you blaspheme, that energy goes out and there's some reaction in it. It hinders our spiritual life. At Yahara Prayasyascha Prajalpa Niyamagraha. So Prajalpa, overeating, at Yahara Prayasyascha Prajalpa Niyamagraha. What is it? Janasangas, Chaloyam Cha. So these 6 things destroy our devotional service. Sadbir Bhakti Vinashyate. Sadbir Bhakti Vinashyate. They destroy our devotional service. So overeating, over endeavoring, talking nonsense, hanging out with bad association, they destroy our devotional service. So we have to first off have at least a taste of devotional service before we can understand what's destroying our devotional service. Because devotional service has to be there in the first place. Sometimes I feel that, I'll be like, man, why am I not feeling the current of nectar? Realize, I overate and now I'm sluggish. I don't feel like doing service. And so you see how it destroys your service. And, you spend too much time talking about something that was Maya, then your enthusiasm for chanting is just way down. You can't chant like you would chant if you had just been talking about Krishna. You're not enthused to chant. So we have to not blasphemy. Blasphemy is the worst one. And we'll lose our taste for chanting very quickly from offenses. There was one person who was like, I knew was like chanting, and then they really were offensive to a lot of devotees. And they were like, I don't like chanting anymore. And I was like, well, I wonder why. You lose the taste for chanting by being offensive. So don't blaspheme others, not especially devotees, but anybody you shouldn't blaspheme. Of course, to call a thief is not fault finding. So you have to have that proper understanding. I recommend reading the Chaitanya Bhagavat for really learning about Vaishnava Aparad and how to avoid it, because there's a lot of instructions and how to avoid Vaishnava Aparad in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. And they're serious. So it's always better to lean on the safe side. Vaisheshika Prabhu, when he was giving initiation in Mayapur, it was so incredible, his whole, mood and that whole energy he has around him. And, in the Holy Dham, it was like amplified. And so Vaisheshika Prabhu was giving initiation. And he was telling his new disciples, distinguish yourselves as my disciples by not blaspheming others, by not criticizing anybody. That's how I want you to be remembered. As the devotees of Vaisheshika Prabhu, do not criticize. I really appreciated that. So, then lastly, a devotee should lead a very simple life and not be disturbed by the duality of opposing elements. So, what does it mean to lead a simple life? It means we keep everything in its place. Otherwise everything becomes complicated. Simplicity is easy, actually. Some people kind of don't understand simplicity, but if you just follow and take things as they are, it becomes very simple. I was hearing Jayadvaita Maharaj speak about that we can ask, well, what about this? What about that? Onions and garlic and sometimes, but if you just realize, you just follow things very simply, as what Prabhupada said, so I'm going to follow. And you become very simple. That's an austerity, actually, to follow very strictly and to be simple. It's an austerity, and it's difficult, actually, at the beginning, but in doing that, you become very simple. I'm going to take prasadam. Simple. Bas, I'm going to eat prasadam. That's not prasadam, I don't want it. That's simple life. Sex life, illicit sex life. No. Sex life is for children. Bas. That's it. Simple. Everything is in its place. Actually, that's what really, if you can be very simple just by realizing how everything is in its place in Krishna consciousness. The use for things in Krishna's service is simple. Why do we speak? To glorify Krishna. Very simple. Otherwise, don't speak. So it's a simple way to live if you follow. And, of course, duality of opposing elements. So there's so much duality in the world. Krishna says, Matra spashashta kunteya satoshna sukadukada agamai paino nityas tamstatikshava bharataha. If the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of the summer and winter seasons, one should learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. Right? They arise from sense perception, and one should learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So, yeah, there's going to be so many things that are disturbing. But actually, we should understand what that means in the context of the devotees. Some people think that just being tolerant means being like, going out into the cold and just, being like an emotionless type of being. Actually, real tolerance means that we don't become agitated in our service. And despite all the different waves of life, we remain fixed in our activities of Krishna consciousness. That's actual tolerance. That's actual austerity. Because, Arjuna, in one sense, you can say he was tolerating if he had left the battlefield. Oh, I'm tolerating him. I'm not angry about the fact that they, tore the clothes off my wife and tried to embarrass, they tried to kill me and burn me in a house, and they tried to send Dhruva Muni to curse me, and they did so many things, to the Pandavas. And that, there's so many things that they did to the Pandavas that the Kauravas did. And so Arjuna was saying, I'm tolerating that. I'm just going to go out into the battlefield and just go sit under a tree and forgive them. Oh, Arjuna is so tolerant. That's not real tolerance. Real tolerance means that I'm tolerating by being fixed in my service to Krishna. So Arjuna became very angry in the battle, right? Different times, right? When Abhimanyu died, became furious, went to go kill Somadatta. He fought through the entire Kaurava army. Right? Somadatta, right? Lavanga. He's our Mahabharata expert. Somadatta. So yeah, Abhimanyu was, killed, and that whole thing was arranged by Somadatta. So Arjuna took a vow that tomorrow I'll kill Somadatta, or else I'll kill myself.
No, I'm sorry.
Jayadratha. Yeah, they get them confused. Yeah.
One time.
He wanted to get it from, he wanted the benediction to kill him on it. I can't give you that. I'll get a benediction that you can hold her. And there's a Dasa where Krishna, Arjuna doesn't get to kill him, and the sun's going down. Arjuna's going into the fire, and Krishna makes the sun come back up.
I think it might be different because he's the one when with Abhimanyu was killed, and then Arjuna made a vow to kill him that day,
The next day.
or else kill himself. And so then, yeah, okay.
And then he killed him, but it was like a dramatic fight where he thought, oh my God, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to have to kill myself. And then,
Well, I love it because, it says, Arjuna made that vow, and then, it's described, Duryodhana was in ecstasy. He's like, oh yeah, we got him. We're just going to put Jayadratha in the back. Arjuna's going to have to fight all the way through. And then, it's described that Bhishma Dev just looked away because he knew that Jayadratha was already dead. Because Arjuna had made that vow, there was no hope for him. And so, anyhow, the point is that Arjuna got, angry. And he broke the whole spirit of the Kauravas by doing that. But we should realize that in our service, there's going to be times where we may need to manifest anger. We may need to express ourselves, may need to, share with others. But we remain fixed in our devotional service. That's actually what makes one a sadhu. Not up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, steady, fixed in service. That's sadhu. Krishna says, Apichat suracharo bhajate mamananyabhak sadhareva samantivyaha samyak devashito saha. Even if you commit the most abominable activity, if you have that fixed bhajate mamananyabhak sadhareva samantivyaha, you're a sadhu. You never ever deviate from your devotion to Krishna. That makes you a sadhu. Not simply, tolerating. Krishna's not pleased by austerity, actually. Oh, he's so austere. During the fire, there's that beautiful pastime, Chaitanya Bhagavat, about the brahmachari who was just living so austere, he was only drinking milk. He wanted to go into the kirtan of Lord Chaitanya. And so Lord Chaitanya, Srivas Pandit let him in, and Lord Chaitanya was, something's off. I'm not really feeling the ecstasy today. There's someone here who's not supposed to be here. Lord Chaitanya just chastised him, get out of here. Really chastised him. And, he was like thinking, I'm so austere, I've done so much, Lord Chaitanya approached him later nicely and said, you really think you can please me by drinking only milk? No. You please Lord Chaitanya by bhakti, by loving devotional service. So it's not that, this type of tolerance is not what we're talking about. We should tolerate the duality of opposing elements by being fixed in the singularity of devotional service. And then we will become actual sadhus. Because that's how we develop love for Krishna. The gopis were, they're not like, some of the best devotees, they're not like yogis in the sense that we, normally think, but they love Krishna the most. They're never going to forget Krishna no matter what. Their only shelter, their only source of pleasure, their only source of refuge is Krishna. So that's what really devotee means. That's what real sadhu means. Is that we only take shelter of Krishna. And so to speak of preaching, we have to talk about Krishna. Because we have faith that Krishna is all attractive. Anyhow, so any questions or comments? Lalita?
So what if you're preaching to somebody and they kind of they want Krishna consciousness without Krishna, and they are actually averse to hearing about Krishna, but yet they keep asking you questions, but they don't want to hear about Krishna. I'm just totally confused as to what to do. And this is a real situation that I'm facing.
I mean, I think it comes down to, you have to be a little bit expert. And, you have to, like the doctor, experts, physician knows how to diagnose someone where they're at. And, you can't, maybe this medicine will cure them, but they don't have the strength to handle it. So it'll kill them if it'll cure them, but actually it'll kill them, So, we should, just realize that if someone is doing some service and they're, serving the devotees fixed in that, then that's okay for now. We don't go out and try to read the Bhagavad Gita to Joe.
Mhm.
We would never do that. But still, Joe's making, we can't even imagine how much spiritual advancement Joe's making, for all he's done in terms of service to Krishna. So we have to understand, and then if there's an opposing element where they're opposing and being kind of offensive, then we have to find a way to not engage them in any offensive activities, as best as possible.
I was also thinking just now when you brought up actually I was thinking before, and then you brought up that verse, about how Krishna says, "I'm the taste of the water, I'm the light of the moon, sun and the moon." Perhaps I could.
Yeah,
engage
it's also
in that.
recommended is that, in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, that, the person who can't, those people who are, seriously low in their consciousness, they can't conceive of a personality of Godhead, and they should meditate on the universal form.
Mhm.
That there's, the whole thing in the second canto about, the mountains are the stacks of my bones, and the trees are my hairs.
Right.
The birds are my creativity, and all these beautiful descriptions that are being described. And you can meditate and think like that of Krishna. And, you'll make progress because you're thinking of Krishna. We can't engage people in offenses. That's for sure. Well, Lavanga had a question first.
I was wondering if you could comment in the section of the purport where it's talking about the different religious paths, and Prabhupada was saying something like, we should encourage them on their path, at least.
Yeah, Prabhupada never blasphemed any other religions. Devotees may do that, but Prabhupada did not do that.
So we're not in the business of converting.
No. We shouldn't blaspheme other religions. We should respect. Actually, here's a nice point that a devotee brought up to me in way to describe that. And this devotee was in Hawaii. What was his name? Really sweet, senior devotee. Forgot his name. Anyhow, he was really nice. He's a disciple of Tamal Krishna Maharaj. He was the main head pujari in Houston for a long time. Anyhow, he was explaining that, when Lord Chaitanya approached the Kazi, Lord Chaitanya asked, where they were kind of getting a little discussion, right? And Lord Chaitanya said, well, you guys are eating meat. You're sinful right off the bat. How should we, how could we even look at you? You're sinful meat eaters. And the Kazi said, well, our scriptures allow that. And so Lord Chaitanya conceded and said, oh, your scriptures allow that. And that's okay. But our scriptures injunct that we chant the holy names. Therefore, you have to let us chant the holy names because you know that your meat eating is sinful. But the scriptures are giving that injunction because of the level that particular religious faith is at. So in the same way, like the scriptures may allow, like, there's recommendations in the Bible for diet. Of course, the Bible literally says to be vegetarian on the first page. But besides that, the scriptures allow, so there's some concession there. Not that it's pure, but there's some concession. So we shouldn't try to convert people. We are simply trying to present this science and help people where they're at. So we encourage people to follow their religion because it's, even the Vedas do that. The Vedas have their different things. The Vedas have meat eating in the Vedas. There's meat eating and wine drinking in the Vedas. But that's a lower level. But by doing it in a religious way, one makes progress. Okay. Yeah, I think we're finished. But Ram, you ask me.
Actually, it was related to what almost exactly.
Kirtanesvara Bhagavatam.